Hi there. Welcome to The Preventable, the podcast giving you a seat at the table with conversations about the intersection of alcohol, drugs, and mental health in everyday lives. Take a seat and join us.
Welcome to The Preventable. It is the first episode of season 4, which is totally insane that it's been 4 seasons, I guess, since we've been doing this. And we are so grateful for Hubbard for allowing us the space and the time and the connections, and we really wouldn't be here without them. So we're just incredibly grateful. I am trying really hard not to geek out today because I am a uber fan of The Rizzuto Show. I listen every morning, and when I can't listen, I go to the podcast. And we have had Rafe on, we've had Learn, and today we have Moon and his lovely bride, Mallory. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We talked a little bit before, Moon, about how it might be weird that people already know you. Like, is it like I see you and I'm like, oh, he went to Lindbergh, he has kids, he's in, 95 bands, and he plays matchup with Moon, and he usually kicks butt. Like, I feel like I know you even though I don't know you. Like, Is that cool? Is that
it's awesome. So, I mean, in a nutshell, and I'll try to keep it concise. I was a kid that had real difficulties with communication. Like, I always felt like I was like 4 steps behind everybody else. Like, everybody in my grade was always talking at a particular cadence or about certain subjects, or this was cool and I didn't understand why, or I always had a real delay with communication, and it really bothered me. Freaked me out. In fact,
did it freak your parents out too?
No, they didn't. No,
you just kind of internalized
that generation was kind of more hands off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were very much just like they were there to keep me alive and like make sure I was provided for, and they did an excellent job doing that. But they probably had no idea that I was going through the terror that I was going to school every day. But I think, and I was extremely shy. I still am very introverted, very quiet. I love my family and my home, and just like hanging out with my close circle. But I think a lot of that and my tenacity and intensity as far as who I am as a person kind of almost like immersion therapy I kind of took to the stage. And this is a story that is not uncommon. A lot of people take to the stage because of such intense shyness or whatever. And I didn't realize that was happening at the time, but obviously looking back with some maturity, I can go, oh man, that's probably exactly what happened, is that I found I could communicate in songwriting, and if I got really good and I worked hard, which I did. I mean, every day for 4 years, my buddy Johnny and I would play music. We played soccer until it got dark, and we played music until his mother kicked me out. So it was like we honed this skill that was going to be a way that we could communicate with the world around us because we weren't able to do it in the normal fashion. You know what I mean? So I was I'm the adopted son of educators, so they're like natural teachers, and that was like a nature that was pressed upon me as far as like storytelling or educating, how you speak to educate people. So in this weird way, my nature that was, that was my nurture part, my nature that was so shy but like wanted to communicate, and my nurture that was like this education, very rigid sort of education speak, sort of turned me into a storyteller, and that was how I could communicate with people. So from an early age, I was a professional stage communicator, and when you're communicating from the stage, you're writing something sometimes for hours, days, months, or whatever, for in a basement or in a studio, in a pretty lonely environment, and then you're communicating it to a group that's responding to you in real time with, like they're singing your lyrics back. And occasion, back then too, it was before like the internet and social media. On occasion, people would get to you and tell you what their connection was with your song.
Correct.
And so I was used to that at a really young age, and then that was mind blowing to me. But you also realize the more vulnerable you are in songs, and the more real you are in songs and authentic, the more people will connect with that.
That's right.
And the more that they know you. And like ultimately that was the goal for me. So I closed the loop there.
Interesting.
So when somebody came up and said, "Oh my gosh, this song speaks to me," even if the meaning that I meant in the lyric wasn't directly translated or understood by the listener.
But it was interpreted by them.
Yeah, as long as I caught something, like it closed the circle for me. So in a way, I kind of adapted to the communicative response system through song. Now with radio, it's very different because, especially if you're on the mic by yourself, you're telling jokes to a wall. Like you don't know what's reacting or not, and a lot of people have difficulty with that. I didn't have a difficulty with that because I was already writing songs. And when you're writing songs and recording them, you have no idea how it's going to react.
Right.
But you're willing to put yourself in this like vulnerable package and just put it out. So in radio, I'm not doing too much different. I'm just not refining it. Now I'm just like shooting from the hip for 4 hours a day, and I'll say random crap, and I don't know what I'm saying.
It like clearly sounds like you're just hanging out with your buddies, and there happen to be microphones, like your buddies and your cousin, right?
For sure.
Like you're just hanging out, and it's like we get the pleasure of sitting in and listening.
Yeah, and there's locks on certain doors. When it comes to like certain things about my children or my relationship with my wife or whatever it may be. But for the most part, I think people react to our show, and we've had Riz and I have had #1 show together for 10 years now.
It's amazing.
10 years, and I think it's because we are so very authentic, so very vulnerable. If I'm upset, even if I'm going to regret it later and I'm disappointed in myself, like I'm going to let it fly because it's honest. And even if I know that what I'm going to say is going to upset 85% of our listeners, like if that's how I feel, I think people, once they get to know you, they respect the fact that you can or you can't be the person that can admit that they're wrong. And even though like I know that probably half the time I'm saying something opinion wise, like I'm running the risk of being wrong, and I'm totally fine with that. But I think people, even the ones that hate me or Riz or whoever because of what we stand for or we say, at least they know that we're being authentic. We're being as honest as we can. We believe what we say,
right.
and at the same time, we're willing to admit that we might be wrong.
One of my favorite games that you all play is the butt hurt game.
Yeah.
Only because it is harsh, and it's also like I can imagine me and my friends sitting around, or me and my sister, like it's that like brutal honesty where you're like,
Yeah,
sorry,
you're playing the
like,
game with people you know.
Exactly. But you all, over 10 years, that people listen, they've heard the joys, like when you all got married, they've heard the heartbreak, like when Jeff passed away, and like people are like crying because you're showing vulnerability and you're holding each other accountable. You're also, as a whole team, you're not afraid to admit when you're wrong or to say like, I hadn't thought about that. Like you can actually like hear people changing their thoughts in real time, which I think is very rare. Like people are either right or they're wrong. It's either this or it's this.
Yeah.
But two things can be true at the same time. And I think that the space that the radio show allows, and then your remotes and things like that, like that's why people gravitate, because you're like authentic human beings.
Yeah. The authenticity of us leaves the listener that listens enough the understanding that like we are people that are willing to change our perspective. I mean, a lot of the times that we're having the conversation is with the intent of having our perspective be pushed.
Sure.
But at the same time, we're also entertainers. We're like, we're putting on a show. You want us to just agree all the time?
Right. That would be so boring.
It's so boring. And honestly, like one of the things that I think has made our show, whatever iteration it is, current or past, is that the individuals involved, especially when the show started, and I think that's one of the reasons that we kickstarted so well and so unexpectedly, is because a couple of us were totally willing to play the villain. And it became my job. So like as a music producer and writer and a band guy, and I'm sorry that I'm hogging the microphone, Mallory. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You'll get your time. Don't you worry.
But like when it comes to this kind of thing, like as an entertainer, like pretty much a lifelong entertainer, my entire adult life, I've been trying to make sure that I put on the best product, the best show. And I've been in bands and bands that work. No matter what the hierarchy is or how it works, if it's a dictatorship or a democracy or whatever it may be, for the most part, bands that really work, that make it work, everyone has at least a degree of self-awareness of what their role is or should be in the moment. And sometimes that changes album to album. Sometimes it changes... For me, it changes band to band. I'm in multiple bands,
Sure.
and I play a different role in each one.
Goldfinger is my favorite because I grew up a ska kid.
Yeah,
and
and Goldfinger is a perfect example because there's 5 alpha males on stage. Like, we're all alphas. We're all leaders in our own bands. We're all frontmen in our own bands.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize
But
that.
everybody shows up and we're total pro because we all know that John is the leader. John is the front man. John is the face, and we don't need to be that. And somehow that guy got a super group of 5 frontmen that all respect that there's one front man. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
So that's a perfect example. But in the Rizzuto show, I quickly realized that no matter what my role was on the mic, I would recognize, and I wasn't the only one, I would recognize when things were too Rizzy. Like, they were, like, everybody was agreeing. Like, Riz would stand on something and somebody go, oh, yeah, you're totally right. If I heard the words, oh, yeah, Riz, you're totally right, even if I believed exactly what Riz believed, and even more so, I would go, oh, God.
Yeah, you're kind of the contrarian
we need
a little bit.
Here.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of people hate me on that show because I am the contrarian. And you know what? Great.
Well,
because I'm playing a role
Yeah.
that makes the product better. It ain't about me. Sometimes it should be about me. Sometimes it's not. And sometimes I go too far with trying to make it about me. Sometimes I don't go far enough. But it's a band. It's a group that's putting on a show in real time, for the most part, shooting from our hip, kind of like, you know, sassing off about whatever subject's been brought up, and if everybody's just sitting there going, yeah, Riz, no one's listening.
Well, I feel like you do play the role of contrarian, but you also, and it's related, you're also like Mr. Positivity in a lot of ways, right?
You.
Like Riz or, you know, Rafe or whatever will be kind of like, you know, like shit talking about something. And then you're like, well, hang on. Like, let's think about it this way. Or is he always this positive?
No.
Because, I mean, I think for me, it seems like your dissenting opinion is always pushing everybody else to kind of give it the benefit of the doubt, or playing the devil's advocate, just thinking about something different.
I think that is what you do really well. And you're also open to listening, which, like, go husband, go.
Woo-hoo!
I mean, just the other day we were talking about something and you were like
I was
set on something, and, you know, talking about whatever it was. I'm like, you know what, you should think about it in this way. And you're like, you know, I think you're right. I'm like, yes, I know I am.
Do you remember what I
but
said?
I appreciate you saying that. No.
In the instant, you said it and I go, hey, I really appreciate you saying that because I never would have come up with that perspective on my own.
Whoa.
And like, because she was totally right. Like, she slammed what I said, but in the nicest way possible. And I mean, in like a concise, positive way, you pushed on every single thing that I said and that I truly believed. And I went, oh my gosh, thank goodness I have this person. Thank goodness I was honest enough to put this out there.
Sure.
And then have it be pushed back because she, like, I'll never think that way again. And I don't even remember what the subject was, but like, I instantly was like, oh yeah, wow, that's like, what a thank you. I'm so happy that I married someone so smart.
Wow. That is on tape.
Yes,
so
thank
we
you.
can replay that back all the
that.
time.
I'm telling you, makes a difference.
It does make a huge difference. Having a partner that will push you and encourage you and also like help you see things differently, see the world differently. And that actually, this is a perfect segue because I know you are really into wellness.
I am.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, I don't know exactly the word you use, but you've been open about the fact that you don't drink, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you identify with sober or you just don't drink. I don't know.
Kind of. I mean, it just depends on the day. You know, I don't think when either one of us stopped drinking, we thought we had a problem drinking. But I do think making the decision to stop drinking alcohol was just something kind of started doing because I wanted to get up earlier during the week because I wanted to work out in the mornings, and that was it. So I mean, it was simply as...
Because you are, am I right? You're a personal trainer, or you do lots of wellness
I run
things?
online accountability groups for health and fitness.
Online accountability group. Whoa,
yeah, so I don't actually like create any of the workouts, but I do provide the opportunity and like create the calendars and pass them out to women that are working with me. So I'm a coach more than anything else.
For sure.
And when you're a coach and you have somebody that's looking to you and what your daily habits are, I feel like there's a little more scrutiny that I give myself of, okay, how can I actually show up just a little bit better? And I was at a time in my life that I wanted to do more. I mean, who doesn't have that moment at some point? But I was like, you know, at the end of year 3 of working towards some business goals that I hadn't hit, and wanted to get up earlier, and had read this book called The 5 a.m. Club. And the thought of getting up at 5 a.m. sounded actually awful.
I know, that like hurts my brain.
Awful.
It hurts my body.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't go back to it now, but at the time I needed it. I needed the discipline, and the only way I could stay disciplined was to give up alcohol. So I think we would have said like we went alcohol free, and now it's like, I mean, we're sober. We haven't had any alcohol since October of 2019, but it started because I wanted to get up earlier to work out.
Right.
I was like, okay, well, during the week I'm not going to drink. And then Saturday came, and it's like, you know, I actually feel really good and really clear-headed. I think I'm just not going to drink for the rest of the year. And then it just was like, well, it's dry January. Let's just not drink.
Yeah.
And then that was it. It was like there's no going back to wanting to feel that way. You know, I see all, you know, how many Instagram reels or posts, you're like, there's never a day that you wake up glad that you're hungover. But
that's
every
true.
day you wake up not hungover, you're like, okay,
benefits.
thank you.
There's no benefits to alcohol. It's poison for your body. It's poison for your mind. Physiologically, psychologically, like it was just bad news. And the other reason that you marked as well, like when you first brought it up was, you know, like we were really getting into business and understanding ourselves as a business and our family as a business, and like trying to like just have a better mindset on how to run our lives and structure wise, not only for ourselves, but so we can be better examples and teach our children.
Yes, you're reading my mind.
Yeah, that was something that I was not. My parents are awesome, but like I didn't even know what a checking account was when they let me go. You know what I mean? Like and you do some. You're one of the spokespersons, right, for one of the credit unions,
Together
Credit Union,
and you talk a lot in your promotional stuff about financial literacy and how that's not necessarily something you had, but it's something that you talk to your kids about. And so absolutely. I wonder, and education, because you grew up with teaching parents, and from everything I've heard from both of you, it sounds like education is very important to you. So I wonder, when you decided to not drink, did you, and build your business, did you have those conversations with your kids? And you have several age groups of kids, right? So I can imagine those conversations might have looked a little different.
Well, so long story short, she actually, Mallory, one of the conversations that I remember you having with me when you said like, hey, I think I don't want to drink. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Why? And she said it was because a lot of the women that she was looking up to, she was kind of like, you know, statistically sort of running.
Just looking at how they're living their lives. What do their routines look like?
These big common threads that she kept finding in all the women that she was looking up to, you know, whether it was mentor or just inspirations. A common theme was that they were sober, or that they never drank in the first place.
Interesting.
And that and you were like, you know what? If that's a common thread, that is something that I can do, and it's worth trying. Let's go for that. So it's a different story than a lot of people that got sober because of a particular moment
but people have different. That's one of the things we talk about. I mean, there is no one way or right way to do it, and there's lots of different means to stop drinking. Yeah. Some people have quote unquote a bottom. Other people it just doesn't make them feel good.
Yeah,
you know? Or they have a health reason that they don't drink, or whatever.
Everybody's story is
everybody's story is different.
But everybody's different. Everybody's story is exactly the same, and the thing that you are reaching for is as big a life as possible.
That's right.
And you drop the bad stuff that can be nothing but anchors. It can be a giant anchor for one person, maybe a smaller anchor for someone else. But the fact of the matter is, we all have this common thread of, you get to a point, whether it's a really difficult point or just a shift, where you go, how do I live the absolute biggest life possible? Because we only get one shot here, and it's like, so, when she says that I'm not always positive, well, one of the big reasons is because like I'm a brutally honest and direct person, and I'm very, very intense with how I scrutinize myself and the world around me, and I have extremely high standards. I'm sure some people have found me, difficult to work with and whatever, because I do have such crazy high standards for myself.
Yeah.
And I've learned to be more of an adult and not put those standards on others around me as much. But one of the things that comes with for me is I am always trying to really focus on what I don't like about myself or my actions or whatever. And I have a tendency to get super dark. I can go very depressive. I can be morose at times. Like I'm a heavy man. I'm a heavy guy. I have a heavy heart with certain things. I've been that way since I was a very small child.
You have really high standards.
Yes, yeah. I do. And
it kind of goes back to what you were talking about at the very beginning with being really an introvert and having a hard time being pretty insular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, when you're like 6 years old and you have a very distinct multiple memories of your father telling you to lighten up, you're probably a heavy person.
Are we the same person? Yes, because right, exactly.
So I hear you. So as one understands thyself and tries to like get there to understand yourself, which is so very important, what do? Like you are conquering the things that you are susceptible to. So I am extremely positive, and I preach that, and I lean into that so hard because that's what I'm telling myself.
Correct.
That's what I'm preaching to myself. That is the life reminders that are constantly barraging me to make sure that I am demanding I live up to the standard that I want for myself to live as big of life as I insist I live.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I've had, without getting into the adoption thing or any of that, I found out when I was 7 that I was adopted, and ever since. So basically the creation of who you are around 6, 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had this responsibility on my shoulders where I feel like God put me in this place that I normally wouldn't have been. You know what I mean? Like there were so many blessings that even put me in a place to survive and to be where I was and to prosper and have a okay middle class, healthy family unit and all these different things. I just so many different blessings, and I owe a life of service or something big I need to do. I am here to do something big, as if for nothing else, that just to return the favor to God.
Which to some people can sound like very ego driven, right? Like that I'm here for a big reason. I want to stop drinking because I want to be bigger. Like for some people who don't allow themselves to think that way, mm-hmm. it can seem like, oh, well, you're self-important, or you think you're better than and that's not what it is.
No, yeah, no,
at all.
Not for me.
And can I make an observation about you?
Please.
Because even saying like you're a negative person, you're a positive person, I don't even think it's that. I think how you think is always seeing what the possibilities are. You're always open to possibility. And so when you see somebody else complain about something or say something negative, your brain immediately jumps to, wait a second, but look at all of these other places that your thoughts could be taking you right now, and instead you're like stuck on this thing. And then when it comes to yourself, I think that's where a lot of your negativity comes from, is like it's not even negativity, it's you being hard on yourself. And it's that same knowing what's possible for other people, but also like, what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And you know that you're insanely talented, and you know that you can push yourself to a certain level. And so I think in the like, what am I called to do conversation, it's just knowing that there's like this, we talk all the time about that, the gap in the gain, the book of like where you are now and where you want to go, and not always giving yourself credit for how far you've come, or being the introverted 6-year-old and being thankful and gracious for all of the skills that being that shy kid taught you to be this person, knowing that like the negative space it's always going to be there. Like you're never going to reach your full potential, because as soon as you get to the next level, your potential raises again. Yeah. And I think that's kind of where, I think that's where you struggle seeing the positive for what is possible for you and why it's possible for you to see what's available to other people.
Yeah, and she's helped me.
Mallory, you should be a coach. Oh,
dude,
wait.
she's brilliant.
You are.
She's brilliant.
You're
And
good.
she helps me daily and
Dude,
weekly
I know.
and
I'm
monthly.
sitting here like, wow.
No,
I need
it's
to
pretty
hire
amazing.
Mallory.
And I totally understand and respect why I could be misunderstood as narcissistic or whatever you'd like to label me. And one of my superpowers is that's fine. Like I'm totally okay with you thinking whatever you want about me. Like I know in my heart that expectation to do something big has nothing to do with do something big as in famous or recognized. Like I really don't care about any of those things. I know that sounds silly being a public figure and an entertainer. The only reason I'm here is because this is just what happened. Like I never plan on any of this stuff. So this is just what happened. The expectation that I have on myself for a big life is 100%, I assure you, just I owe this to God. There's such a blessing upon my life. I am so fortunate to be here. I'm so fortunate to have met this woman. I'm so fortunate to be healthy. I'm so fortunate to have parents that are alive and love me. I'm the luckiest guy on earth, and I owe everything I can do, which does pour over into my confidence. So I feel like I can do anything because I have to in order to get even just like an inch of ground back on the favor that I owe God.
Yeah.
Is that, like I'll never live up to what he's done for me, all the sacrifice, but like I owe it a sporting chance to like go for all of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my prayer every morning is like, help me figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do. Like, how am I supposed to go about today and the next year and whatever in order to do your will, to use whatever it is you've given me.
So we've sort of talked about this idea of being like introverted or self-critical, and I am in a leadership position at work. I do this. I have to do certain public-facing things. I would rather speak to a group of 1,000 people than have to make small talk with like 2 people in a room. Like it hurts my brain to think about having to find something to talk about and be interested in and think about giving energy to do that versus I don't even need a script. I can stand in front of I can do that all day long. And I have found that several of the radio hosts who have been on here, or several of the people who are in public facing things, running their own businesses, doing their own thing, have very similar feelings like I feel. Like
I really talk everything you're saying.
It is, and so then I wonder to myself, am I, kind of like you said earlier with music, am I doing these public-facing things because that's my way of kind of connecting and being heard? Am I trying to overcompensate? Am I what is that? Or is it just truly where I'm most comfortable and then leaning into that, right? Like you hear comedians talk about the fact that they get into comedy because they have crippling anxiety and they don't feel good about themselves. So they start making jokes because then hopefully, either people will pay them attention or won't pay them attention. And so being a performer in some way is like, you kind of want to take the attention off of you, but at the same time, you're in the spotlight. Like it's such a weird, like how does that work? Do you know? Can you help me figure it out?
I think it works a little bit differently for everybody. It's probably all in the same like grouping. For me, again, it was about like communication. When I first saw Garth Brooks when I was 10 years old, saw him on HBO.
When you got to meet, I was crying.
Yeah,
like when you're
dude,
telling that
surreal.
story, you're getting emotional. Everyone was kind of razzing you, but at the same time was like really like had your back, you know, and like to meet an idol is, and then to have them live up to it.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't always happen.
And then to like not go flat when you sang in front of him.
I know, I crushed.
Yeah,
I think.
right? Like But okay, I'm sorry. For some people who have no idea what we're talking about, go ahead.
Well, yeah. So like, I was 10 years old, 91. He played some HBO thing or whatever, and like I wasn't raised around music. There wasn't music like played in the car or nothing, and I saw this and I was like, there was a point where it was like raining. I'd never seen like music. Oh,
and he's performing like in the like Shameless, like in the rain or
and
whatever.
I was like, what the heck? Like I didn't know what a concert was. So none of it made sense to me. I didn't know like you buy a ticket and people like the concept was like a 5-year-old concept, and I was a 10-year-old experiencing it. So I was like learning all this, like how's this? This guy smashes. You can smash a guitar. It's like I remember turning around and looking at my dad. And I was like, "You can do that?" And he's like, "Well, he can." And
he's Garth Brooks.
Yeah, and I remember saying like, "I'm going to do that." And he said, "Don't quit your day job," whatever it was. And I just thought like, that looks like the coolest thing ever. And I didn't even put it in perspective of like, that looks cool because he's making thousands cheer. Like that wasn't it. And when I first got a guitar and started learning it, all I thought was, I still can't believe I was like 14 years old, 15. I was 15 when I first got my first guitar, and all I thought was, wait a second, my favorite rock bands get to make this silly music and their guitar, and they get to travel the planet, bro. I want to go to Japan, like you know what I mean? Like, and I had it had nothing to do. My visuals had nothing to do with being on stage and being adored or
totally.
attention. It didn't make any sense to me. It was just like I love writing songs. And this is really cool, and playing this guitar is fun because like I figured it out on my own, and I did have natural talent where I could like pick up instruments and like kind of stare at it for a while, figure it out, and like bang out a melody and play things by ear. So like that was given to me,
mm-hmm.
and but the dream was not about attention. It wasn't about anything. It was just about like, whoa, I want to travel the world doing something that seems so easy and fun, and
connecting with people.
And communicate things that like I feel really bizarre talking about, like heartaches or this or that,
yes.
or like experience. My cousin was killed when he was 17, and I was writing songs about that like every other day.
It's like you can write a song about that and sing it, but to sit in a room and have to like try to talk to somebody about that,
So for me, it was communication. But when you go back to talking about like how you feel more comfortable talking to 1,000 people than like 2, that's something that Mallory's had to endure me complaining about forever, because I'm not naturally good at speaking to small groups or people in general, because I miss a lot of social cues. I don't like, she's always telling me like, dude, clearly the conversation was over and you kept going. And like I get instructed that I blew it like once every other month, and like 2020 was like devastating for our wallet, but man, it was freaking sweet because I didn't have to talk to anybody. For me, like it was a relief almost. But I too, I could perform in front of 35,000 people that would cripple most people going out there. That just crippling anxiety. I go out there and like, this is cake, bro. This is cake. And maybe this is why. And I'll just present this as an idea that popped up in my mind when you were saying it. Maybe it's because you're talking to yourself. Like when you talk to 35,000 people, it's a wash of colors. There's no faces. There's no interaction. There's hardly any real feedback other than the positive, unless you said something stupid and they groaned.
Right.
So. And it's like, I hate to say this, it's like a mob mentality. So like as long as a few people are cheering, everybody's cheering.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas like, so your presentation then gets to be more delivered about what it is that you need to hear. So going back to what my aura, my positivity, whatever it is, like that's what I believe, because that's what I most tell myself. That's what I'm most practiced at telling myself. Changing my perspective, challenging my perspectives, especially if they get dark, especially if they get sad. So naturally, I'm most practiced at telling someone, it just happens to be me, about perspective shift when you're sad, or when you're hurting, or when you're depressed, or when someone's betrayed you, or when someone is after you, or whatever the heck it may be. So maybe when you go out in front of a group, you're not talking to 2 people and then needing their response to make sense, and you don't have to connect with them in this intimate way. You have to connect with your audience, which honestly in your head, once it becomes a mob and a wash, is you.
Interesting. You might be onto something.
Right? Maybe.
Do you think he's onto something?
I think you are. I think I don't speak to thousands of people all the time. I'm talking to my Instagram stories and going live and hosting webinars and things, but
which is thousands
of people.
Okay.
But it might not pause. Okay, we shouldn't have said that because we don't want you to go, oh, there's thousands of people watching me do this.
But I think you're right, and I think James Clear wrote this book called Atomic Habits. It's great. I'm a big book reader.
I know. You've dropped 3 titles here, and I need to go back and listen.
It's part of my morning
routine.
I love reading Atomic Habits. But he was on a podcast once talking about the reason he wrote that book is because he had terrible habits. So he was constantly educating himself on building better habits and building routine and sharing them. And I related to that so much because it was like, oh, yeah. That's why I like being a health and fitness coach, because I need to stay consistent with what I'm doing. And then I get so excited when I find out this whatever trick that I'm like, somebody needs to know this. I want them to feel this. I want them to feel accomplished because they figured this thing out. Like, who knew planning your day made your life feel so much easier? But turns out it does. So I think that's part of it for me. I think you're the same way, where you're education obsessed. And sometimes we can watch all of the YouTube videos and read all of the books and never apply it. And the biggest shifts happen when you start applying it to your own life. And I think I share them, one, for proof of concept of I am doing this and it is working and you should try it, because you might read it in a book and think okay, sure, you wrote a book about habits. I'm sure you have a great routine, but turns out it sucked. And taking some of those things and applying it and then sharing it, I feel not pulled, but I feel like that's what I'm called to do. I'm like this huge project that I'm just going to keep sharing my trial and error along the way. And maybe you learn from something and you get results faster in what you're doing because I made all of the mistakes for you. I don't know.
That's what I love about this platform as a podcast. I mean, I'll be honest, we started this because no one knew who we were. And Hubbard gave us some free space to use. I had never really listened to podcasts before. I'm definitely more of a music person. Now that we've been doing this and that we've been able to have real in-depth conversations with folks, it's more than a 15-second snippet, right? It's allowing people to have a conversation about how mental health and feelings of insecurity and not knowing what it means to be a parent in 2024 and how am I supposed to do that, and here's my public image, but here's who I really am. There's not a ton of platforms to be able to do that in a really authentic way, because I think a lot of folks are not super willing to show the bumps along the way, to show wow, getting up at 5 a.m. sucks.
It does.
But I'm going to do it, and I'm going to keep doing it until it becomes a routine and it becomes a habit, and then I'm going to probably go on to the next thing. You strike me as a person who, once you get one habit down, then you're like, okay, what else can I build in?
For sure. And it's just slowly stacking habits until you develop, what your routine, what you want to the life that you want to live, and, what kickstarted it for me was not drinking so that I could get up early.
But it's that showing the vulnerability to your clients and even to people listening and to people who listen to you every day and connect with you on socials, that connection, that vulnerability piece. I mean, we know that the opposite of addiction is connection. And so when people feel like they have support systems and feel like people understand them and feel like they don't have to be this certain thing to be accepted, that they can be whoever they want to be, then that prevents them from leaning into substances that just help them cope.
I think that's what I love about social media, and love or hate social media. I feel
there's good and bad.
I feel like that's the positive of social is finding people that are like you. And I mean, even searching, I was following the Sober Curious hashtag for a while, or Sober
Ruby Warrington and all that.
All of that. It was just it was helping me connect with. I'm still connected with people that I have no idea who they are.
Totally.
In whoever. One gal, actually, she's a history chick. You would like her. But it's just connecting with people, women that are your age, or men that are your age that are just have those struggles, because you do go through the same struggles, and it's knowing and recognizing, oh, I struggled with that too, and a gal that I connected with a couple years ago posted this week, I'm on day 2 today. And it's like, okay, well, good for you. Like, I'm happy for you to show up and say, I had to start over and it's okay. And thank you for being here. And the amount of support this woman got from a bunch of strangers on the internet that didn't know her, she needed that. And she needed that and felt safe enough to be vulnerable on social media, to be willing to be in that space that she like opened herself up for people to come out her and like be an asshole, you know? And it's like, oh, I can't believe whatever. And it's like, no, because somebody out there is also on their day 1, or they're on their day 2, or they're on this 37th day 1.
Exactly.
And
right.
they need people like that to show them that they're not perfect, that life isn't meant to be perfect, that it's always about just getting up and doing it one more day, whether it's your 1,000th day or your day 1.
Yes.
Yeah, and every day starts with faith in yourself. Like nothing matters in the past. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's over. There's nothing you can do to change it, and you really have confidence and in this thankfulness that you're here now, and you get to make decisions. You're free. Like, you're already free, and you're free to make the choice every morning, every minute, every moment, every day, to make this day the best day possible. So whether it's day 1 or 1,000, like, they're all great if you have chosen to make it great. You know what I mean? And
it's easier said than done,
totally.
You know, because you get in this.
Totally, but don't think that you're in like a new fight just because it's day 1. Like, it's the same fight as day 1,000, and sometimes things do get a lot easier, and sometimes they don't. I'm connected with a lot of sober fellas, and it is all a different story. For some, the fight is far harder, and those are courageous folks. And I've learned so much from people with completely different stories than me. Like, I didn't even try alcohol until I was 26 or something like that. And then I drank enough for 10 years there because I was on the road.
I was going to say, because you're like a rock star and sex, drugs, rock and roll. I mean, that's a thing, right?
Yeah,
and even if it's not for you, it feels like it's the thing to do.
Yeah,
because...
and I didn't realize until after we had become sober that, like, because we didn't become sober because we thought we had an issue. And then afterwards, it even took years afterwards, you look back and go, oh my gosh, it was totally an issue. And it wasn't a dependency issue as much as it was a convenience issue, and that's a really weird thing to say and realize. And it was harder for me to realize and harder for me to see that, like, oh my gosh, my tolerance was crazy because I was having, I'd walk into the dressing room in London and it's packed with nothing but local beers, and I'm like, oh, what else am I gonna have? Sometimes it tastes better in the water, so like I just go with that, and like before you know it, I get home and I could probably have 10 beers and not feel it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
right.
that was clearly, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, it was years after we became sober that I realized, like, oh my gosh, all of us have so much alcohol in a short period of time, basically. Because you read the studies and you see, like, if you have 4 beers or whatever the heck it was by the end of the week, it's like binge drinking. And I was like, oh my goodness. If someone read the stats of what our band was doing when we were on the road playing 300 shows a year.
And we start talking to 5th graders about that. And when we talk about drugs, the first one we talk about is alcohol. First of all, helping them understand that alcohol is a drug, which like blows their mind, right? Because that's not what we think of. But when we talk about the fact that a drug is something that changes the way you act, think, and feel, and that's why people drink, really. And does it change the way that they think? Yes. Does it change the way they act? Yes. Does it change the way they feel? Yes. And then we talk about why, like what it does to the liver and the brain. But then when we talk about amounts, I mean, the kids are like blown away. And then when they take it home to their parents, which is the full circle, right? Yeah. And then we hear comments from a mom that's like, wow, I didn't know the usual glass of wine I'm drinking is actually 3 servings. Yeah. And, oh, by the way, I didn't know that fishbowl margarita is enough, to consider me a heavy drinker. We don't think about that. But to your earlier points, you're both very into education. We believe at Prevent+Ed that education is power. Yeah. It's a differentiator. Absolutely. And when you know better, you can do better. But a lot of people don't know better. because we don't talk about it, or it's not, taught like certain things, or there's stigma associated or whatever.
Yeah. It is interesting since we've stopped drinking, and the kids are young enough now. I mean, we haven't drank for what's the math on
4
that?
years?
4 years.
4.5 years.
But they'll make comments about how other people are behaving,
right? Mm-hmm.
because they're not used to us behaving in that way. I'm like,
right.
Man, I'm so glad you don't remember me 3 glasses of wine in.
Yeah, and and that was the thing that I didn't realize when I started doing the math and the stats. It's like, oh my gosh, I was a heavy drinker, but I was never drinking to get drunk. It would be 7 beers over the course of noon to midnight.
Yep.
Which is heavy drinking. But because I wasn't doing it in like a party sense, or like, blacking out at parties or something like that, to me it wasn't the same. But it was horribly damaging on my body, and I'm bummed about that. But at the same time, like, I feel like, dude, remember my whole mantra of like maximizing my life, and like I was not maximizing these times when I was in these cool cities, experiences or countries. You know what I'm saying?
I think
I wasn't maximizing my minutes, and that bums me out more than anything.
Yeah.
It took from me.
Right.
And I'm so glad that
you got it back.
Yes, that like I got it back at whatever, how 37 or whatever. I forget how old we were, but like
well, I'm 37 now, so
yeah,
don't
sorry,
age
I was 37.
me.
Whatever it was, like I'm so thankful. Like that. What a blessing. What a blessing that I didn't endure
that
it
now
for 20 years. I did
exactly.
It. You know what I mean?
And that now your kids are of an age where they can be observant about how you behave, how other people behave, and that will inform their decisions, right, as they get older.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal.
Our kids are everything. Like I was just having lunch with a good buddy. A dude that I played high school soccer with. His name is Matt Bills. You should follow him on socials. He's a motivational speaker. Great dude. Great follow.
We should have him on the podcast.
Yeah, dude. Matt is he's great, and we're kind of similar gentlemen. That dude has a lot of kids. He has 5 girls now. And so we're living kind of similar lives.
You always say it's a lot of kids, and like if people don't, they think you're like, mother goose or mother hen or whatever, and you have like 90 children.
There's
like
a lot of kids.
It's a lot, but it's not.
When you go by car size, when you're like, okay, we cannot fit all the children in one car. You're like, okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, we're suburban plus some. Suburban and a trailer. But we were talking yesterday just about everything, and he said, so, like, what is your ultimate goals? We were just talking about goals and motivation and different things.
Which, by the way, is super cool for 2, like, I don't want to say middle-aged because I'm 43, but, okay, middle-aged men to be sitting around talking about, like, your life's goals.
Yeah. And these are the friends that have been seeking for many, many years, and I'm finally starting to find them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is the first lunch we've had, but we've known each other since we were in middle school.
Okay, so you're sitting. I'm sorry to interrupt. So you're sitting. You're talking. Like, I mean, that's just incredible.
No, you're
to
right.
Me, but.
You're right, and like we've been talking about that for the last couple of years, especially when 2020 hit, because we realized oh man, we love this, and we kind of like sat in our nest in our shell, and we loved it, and then like 21 came out, we're like, we'll blossom and start talking to people again, and we didn't, and then 22 came around, like we really need to start getting out there.
But then you're more selective in who you want to spend your time with, like who.
Right, we were able to hit the reset button.
Yes.
But I will fully admit it has been hard to get our motor moving when it comes to actually getting out there. We have friends that are like back into the choir. Yeah, we have friends that are back into the swing of things, and they're having their parties and all that, and we're kind of thankful that we're not on the invite list anymore. Okay,
and
I'm not saying that because these are not our people. You know what I'm saying? But they're like in whatever they're doing
different
something.
Spaces.
And, we're doing something else, and plus a lot of these folks don't have kids, so like we kind of separate ourselves anyway. And finding these kind of folks that I can go to have a sushi date with, a 42-year-old cat, and he's asking me what my life goals are. And
I know.
I was like,
so
dude,
cool.
It was the greatest date.
It's like the type of friendship like you want your whole life.
Yeah, we were both talking about that.
Like it's the type of friendship that when you're 15, you're like, I really wish I had just like a really good buddy. Like, and then like somehow over time and with intention, you get these just amazing friendships.
Yeah, and I'm thankful to have that with King Scott on the show. Yeah. He's my cousin's cousin. We say we're cousins, which basically whatever. But he and I have always had each other. Maybe not always. Kind of hated each other when we were kids, but it was because we were competing for the attention of our mutual cousin.
Got it.
And when he passed in '96, that's when Scott and I we were in distress. we were in total heartbreak, and we were in it together, and we've been connected ever since, and we've been looking out for each other.
That's right.
Ever since, and to have that, even just one in my life, I'm so thankful for. And he was our roommate for a while. I'm sure Mallory loved that.
He lived in our basement.
Yeah, but again, and it's hard to explain when you have somebody's back like that. When people are like, when is Scott leaving? I'm like, I don't know, man. It's whatever.
I don't know.
But anyway, so Matt and I are talking, and I hope he's okay with me talking about this. But he was saying, like, we've been conditioned. Maybe another generation's fault, maybe our fault. Who knows? Who cares? We've been conditioned to think that our value is like, whatever. It's like kind of bell curve thing where we have this value when we're like in our 30s and we're doing good business, and then as we get older and we're supposed to retire and just fade off, that like we're our value to society and ourselves even like kind of like deteriorates. And he's like, dude, the biggest shift that I've done is like in my mind is knowing that like your value is this very, very, very slow rise, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, it goes up. It should just continue to go up. But because we're conditioned to think that we have this like bell curve peak kind of thing, that initial go when you're like really doing all the work, and I'm not talking about work in selling your business or doing this kind of stuff and trying to like gain momentum in your career. I'm not talking about that kind of work. I'm talking about work like on your actual self, on who
like
you are,
self-work.
and what you're giving out into the world, whether it's in your business or in your family or whatever. That like you got to put in that crazy work for that flatline area. And he just kept going on and on about how like that's where everybody wants to quit. All of us do.
Yeah.
Like, and that you just have to keep going through that, and then it will compound. Compoundly rise.
And that's where wisdom, I think, comes into play, right? Not being the smartest person in the room, but knowing what motivates you, what compels you.
But we live in this comparison society, which that's just nature.
That's my next tattoo. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Exactly. And that's the market in which we live. And everywhere we look, I'm as susceptible, if not more, to most folks because it's so tempting and so easy to look at what you don't have and then see somebody's Instagram, be like, this guy's an idiot. He's half as smart as me and twice as rich.
And I'm way more talented.
And people are just so, like, it's so easy to get super, super bummed. And Mallory is constantly pushing that gap in the gain thing on me.
I am.
The concept. So explain it just so people can hear you.
I mean, the real concept of the gap in the gain in general is that this is a book, like, so
sure.
Okay. Real quick,
and this truly applies. This applies for me. It's difficult in career. So for me, it applies in the career on a daily stress out because I'm trying to provide for my kids.
Got it.
But this applies to career. It applies to you getting a schedule together. It applies to sobriety. It applies to everything with gap in the gain. Check this out.
Well, just because it's something that's super relatable and because I'm in health and fitness space, I use like a weight loss example all the time of like, let's say you started working out in January and you're feeling really good and you're so excited and you show up and you work out every day for a week and you're pumped about it. And at the end of the week, you haven't lost any weight and you're bummed. And what ends up happening is you're only seeing what you don't have. You're only seeing that you didn't lose the weight. You're not seeing like, oh, I've created good habits. I've gotten up every day this week. I've
gained strength.
All of the wins along the way. You're not seeing like, oh man, if you would just trust the process and recognize the fact that usually the things that we really want take a little bit longer and they take more effort than we think that they will, then you end up getting results faster because you don't stop. So this gap is why so many people struggle because they're so far away from what they really want. They're not seeing how far they've come, first of all. So then they stop too soon because they're only paying attention to how far away they are. But it also comes in career. It comes in comparison to people on social media, of course. But it's like the best habit that I think that you can transition is, it sounds so silly, but it's a great way to train your brain, and everything comes from thinking differently, right? If you want to continue on, it all comes from how you think, which will dictate how you feel, which dictates how you show up. And you have to train your brain to know where you're winning every day. And if you write down 3 things that went well that day, from as simple as I didn't snooze to I got in my water or I got my workout in, you start training your brain to find those things that you're winning. And you get into that practice within a few months, you'll be looking for them every day. Like you start seeking them out. And that's how you start rewiring your brain to to not be in the gap and to be in the gain, where you're always seeing where you're winning. And when you're seeing where you're winning, your emotional connection allows you to keep moving forward. Because I don't know about you, but when you feel guilt or you feel shame because you missed a workout or you whatever, you're like in this space that's not motivating for you to continue on. It's just how our minds and bodies work. So if you allow yourself to sit in the gap, this guilt for what for what you didn't do, or the shame for what you did do and you wish you hadn't, or comparison to what you don't have, it's freezing to you. You don't do anything, and then you end up not making any progress. You end up making poorer decisions. You don't think as clearly when you're in a negative headspace. And so when you stay in the gain, you're paying attention to what's working and what will help you see results faster, because then you don't stop. You just continue on going and realize it's part of the process.
Yeah, for me, like my intensity and something that I trained myself to do put me in a position where that was difficult for me, because I wasn't a writer down. I was a journaler for a number of years, and then I stopped. But my issue was I got so good at only looking forward and never and this rubs people wrong, and that's okay. But like when we got a gold record, like it didn't mean much to me, because it was like that was behind me, and it was like
what's next?
Well, yeah, and at the same time, like that was never a goal. I never like.
You
know what I mean?
I
was never like, I want a gold record. I never like set milestones.
Got
I was just
it.
like going forward. Heave. It was just like this. I'm like pushing forward for whatever it is, and I'd never had like a ultimate goal other than to provide for my family. So when we got a gold record, it was like awesome. And then you put it in a basement, and people are like, "Wow, that is so cool!" And they're right. And I didn't take enough moment to enjoy that or anything.
It.
But it's not even like a scoreboard thing. But I got so good at never looking back, and only looking forward, that for me, when I look forward, what am I seeing? I'm only seeing the things that I haven't accomplished yet. I'm only seeing the gap. I haven't counted anything.
You're only seeing like the hurdles. You're not seeing all the stuff you've been through.
Everything that I've done. And I'm not saying as in like a pride thing.
Sure.
I'm saying as in like don't stress so much. Feel good. Like, have confidence in myself and all these kind of things. So I had this tendency that I built into my habits that were healthy for me on one plane. And the reason that I did that is because, I don't know about you, but if you have like a bad show or something, like it can destroy a person like me.
I perseverate on it. I can't stop thinking about the thing that I messed up.
So when you're playing a rock show every single day, and you're dependent on other people that maybe necessarily aren't pulling their weight sometimes on this instrument or that or something like that, like there's a lot of variables that can make for a bad show. And if you have a bad show and you let it eat you, it could be devastating on the road, especially if you're having a bad tour or this, or you're missing home, and now you've been on a road for 10 months straight and it was a terrible show. The way that I was able to get over that was I trained myself to have this habit of, I would sit there and stew and destroy myself over the mistakes that I made. Because I mean, listen, you go out to your bus and all these fans are out there telling you that was the best show I've ever seen. And when you have just had a bad show that you just botched, you blew this note, you missed these chords, you backflipped terribly, whatever it was, and somebody tells you it's the greatest show ever, you almost like don't even respect them in this moment. You're like, are you kidding me? Did
you not hear that chord that I missed?
Like your soul and body, and I hope I'm being vulnerable and I'm touching nerves here, because like, dude, this is what happens, and I'm just being honest with you. Like there was so many moments in my youth, doing well professionally, where people would be like, that was so great. And I'm like, that was garbage. You don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And like, I would almost lose respect for people. And it became, again, I terrorized myself. My own spirit was at war with itself. And I would hibernate in a bus and be so pissed at myself and so bummed about everything that happened, and rip myself to pieces. And that's not healthy. So I had to develop this habit of giving myself about an hour. For an hour, I allowed myself to do that and be that guy. And after that hour, that show meant nothing. And I moved forward. And I had to cut it off. you had to cut it off. You had to emotionally just sever it, divorce yourself from the regret and from the mistake, and go, I will do this better tomorrow. And for that hour, that's what I would think of, is like, I will not miss this again. I will not miss this moment. Or I'm going to go over and tell that guy that he has to hit that note because it's killing me.
We got to be better.
So my standards would like destroy me for about an hour, and then I would go past it. Now, that became a really healthy habit for me, because then I was enjoying every show and not thinking about last night or whatever I missed or any of that kind of stuff. But the problem is, I got so good at that for a decade of playing that the gap in the gain thing is almost natural for me, because it doesn't matter. I'm almost like, so I have so many different bands, and like tonight we're practicing for Can You Feel the Punk Tonight, this Disney show that we got coming up in May. And man, it's so much work. And I'm like a college kid that like,
which is where you play Disney songs, but with like a punk.
Yeah, rock and roll,
yes,
punk
and
angle,
you've done
like,
the same thing for like Christmas songs, holiday songs.
Fun.
It's
so
super
fun.
cool.
And
it's all ages show.
It's a family show. Last year we sold out both shows, and there was tons of kids. It's like a perfect opportunity to bring kids to like their first rock and roll show.
Yeah, and like expose that. Like, it's so cool.
It's so rad. They get to come to the pageant and see this huge like rock show.
It's so cool
with like their favorite characters and princesses and Star Wars characters walking around taking pictures with them. You know what I'm saying?
Awesome.
It's rad. But it's so much work. And I couldn't tell you a note that we played last year, because like a college kid, like I'm like cramming.
Yeah, you're cramming.
So I cram and I do this and I obsess over it, and we play these shows. And then, I'm not kidding, before I finish packing the stuff up in the trucks to go back home, I'm now thinking of the set of songs that I have to play at the next show. My calendar says, hey, your next thing is April 27th, Goldfinger headline, 90 minutes. And so my head has to start stewing on that. Not stewing, but like rehearsing in my head. I rehearse more in my brain than I do with my body. So again, I'm in this like professional habit of, I just did that. I don't get to sit here and be like, oh, I'm just so cool, I just did that, or we sold this out. Which is really difficult for some of my partners, because they want to enjoy life and they want to enjoy the celebratory moments, and I'm just not a celebratory moment guy. And I'm learning to be where it's necessary for me, but that's okay. That it's in my nature to not like. I'm not a trophy guy. I'm not stoked on like the pedestal. I've been a father since I was 17. So the only thing that's important is like, did I provide for this child? Did I provide for my family? And that's my medal. That's what makes me feel good. Right. So if that happened, I'm like, sweet, that's great. Like, I can't wait to go to the next. And again, I'm not saying that's right. I'm not suggesting this for anybody. I'm just trying to give you. I'm trying to give you a view of what happens in my brain.
There is a positive to that, and I will say, from working with so many women over the last few years, of sometimes we have so much emotion attached to what happened that we can't think clearly about what did go well or what could we change. And usually the next morning is when you will in the kitchen be like, we played this song well, we worked on this, like Mark did great at this part, or so and so. I'm not dropping names on the so and so messed up part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But where you're looking back at it as data, which is useful. So like, even if you're not celebrating it, which you should be doing.
I'm trying to get better.
You're also not attaching this like negative, like, because you have left shows pissed before where you're like, oh, like this messed up or whatever. But it's in every instance, like, you're able to look at it, take the emotion out of it, and actually be able to analyze it and know like what went well, what didn't go well, what am I going to apply better next time. And I think that's incredibly useful, especially like, this is a business for you, like it's very emotionally driven for people that come to shows and do the things, and you love it and you give everything you have. And when we're like watching you on stage, you are in it.
Yeah.
But you also live in the moment, so you don't dwell on. I think that's part of it. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I'm celebrating it as it's happening, and that's it. So like and that's one of the reasons I demand so much when it comes to rehearsals and different things and people showing up prepared, because like, I don't want to be analyzing while it's happening. Right. I don't want to be thinking about the horn part while it's happening. I want to hear it too. Gosh dang it! Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to enjoy it too. So when I'm really enjoying it at a show, it's because like I'm not thinking about it anymore. Right. Because I've been thinking about it for months, and I want to just love it. And I've developed a better habit of doing that these last couple of years, which has been great. But again, it can be difficult. Again, I'm not very great at communicating sometimes, so like it can be difficult for those around me, where they just see me go like, okay, yeah, great, now this, and they're, everybody was like, wants to like.
Yeah.
Tap glasses and I'm like, did you do this? Did somebody get this part? Like, who's taking this thing home? So I get a little data driven, and the days after the shows, I've tried to open up a little bit and sort of discuss it. I need to discuss it a little bit.
Y'all, I could talk to you forever. You are the first husband and wife partnership that we've ever had. So in 4 seasons, and honestly, I did not really know what to expect, because you think you have like an image of somebody and you're really not sure. And I have heard of you and heard you, on when you played the Newlywed Game or whatever, but I didn't really know what to expect. Yeah. And what I know to be true now is that I want to hire you as my coach, because I'm hearing you talk to your husband as a friend and as a coach and as a cheerleader. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like how amazing that you have someone like that in your corner, and how amazing that you're like doing it, right? Like you're doing it and you're embodying what you want to be. Like I am so appreciative for you all to be here today, but also to just show a little bit of vulnerability and allow people to see how you two relate to each other. I mean, I'm absolutely blown away. I hope that you all got everything out of this conversation that you were wanting.
Thank you for having us. This was fun.
And I want to say too, like, this is the first person in my entire life that loves me the way that she does. It's the first person I've ever truly known. Like I know without a doubt that she loves me and trusts me in the way that I need, and that is truly the best blessing to ever happen in my life.
It's a game changer, isn't it?
It's not even, there is no word for what it is, because, and I will say this, whatever befalls me in my life, tragedy-wise or this or that, because, we all have our ups and downs, and this is life. I've never been more confident that I'm still the happiest and most blessed version that I could be because of her. So, and this isn't to like, score points with you, baby. All that's great, but like the true
because band practices tonight.
The real reason that I want to say this is to encourage people to know, and this is something that a few people that I look up to out there in entertainment land have said recently that has just really just rang the bell for me, and it's the most important decision you make is your partner.
Absolutely. There was just a study that came out about that the other day. Mel Robbins' podcast, her episode was just on it. You should look at it.
I will continue for sure listen to that.
It is the partner. It is the person that you choose to spend your life with.
Yeah, because let's say you have a business mind, or maybe you have an artistic mind, or whatever kind of mind you have. The partner you select for that, the partner you select for the art of your life, or for the business of your life, or wherever it is the groundwork for everything you will go through. And I'm not here to say anything negative.
No, I understand.
For the years before I knew her, but it was nowhere near my potential. I was nowhere near the man I could or should have been, because I did not have the trust and the love that I have in my life because of this woman. So,
I feel that. You know how you walk into a home and like you like know it's like your home. Mm-hmm. I also think that when you're around a couple that like gets each other, like you can feel it. I feel that with you, and the reason I'm getting like a little choked up is like I have come to understand how important that is, and I have come to feel that too, and it is indescribable. Really,
I needed it,
especially when you've never had it before.
Yeah, dude. Oh man, I needed a massive love. I needed a massive trust, and she's my rock. She's my link. She's
likewise,
babe. There isn't a word for it. You know what I mean? There's got to be some sort of like biblical, spiritual Greek word or something that gets close, but I don't know it, and I wish I did. But I just hope this is encouraging to somebody out there that feels like you're missing something or whatever. Like it's okay. Make a wise decision when it comes to your partner.
we're going to end it there. And you should let him slide tonight for band practice.
We'll be a little quieter than usual.
If you liked what you heard today, and I know that you did, please consider rating, reviewing, or subscribing. Tell us what you liked. Tell us, what you'd like to see more of. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us at The Preventable, brought to you ad-free by Prevent+Ed. Prevent+Ed works to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use through education, intervention, and advocacy. Please visit their website at prevented.org. Like what you heard? Rate, review, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we are serving on The Preventable.